Know what to eat, but find yourself not eating it. Perhaps you've been on diets and off again and just wonder why you can't stick to them. The Eating For You podcast, hosted by me, Sally-Anne Pisk, will show you what's been missing so you can enjoy a healthier way of eating that lasts. Hi, it's Sally-Anne here, and I'm really excited because I've got Angela Mills back in the guest seat today. Hi, Angela.
Hello, Sally-Anne. It has been a bit of a while since we've seen each other.
Yes, and it's been a long time since you've been on our podcast
that's
too.
right.
So it's great that you're here to talk about how movement, eating, and just mindful living in general, contribute to our overall sense of happiness and well-being. Because we've got International Day of Happiness happening on March 20th. So it's a perfect time to be discussing this. And whilst the United Nations, is really keen on looking at what's happening at a national level for countries with happiness, what we need to do, and the United Nations is encouraging us all to do, is cultivate our own personal happiness. So let's dive into having a look at how exercise and eating and how that sort of builds a happiness profile in ourselves.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting topic because in many respects, happiness is probably the most basic of human emotions that we strive towards. Everything almost, you could say, comes down to us trying to achieve some level of happiness. And women in particular find that they're often caught in this rut, especially through midlife, where it seems like obstacles and things that are putting a damper on their happiness are coming from all directions, whether it's through, family needs, that require them to give more of themselves, being in demanding jobs, but also the big one, the fact that at this point for many women, perimenopause hits, and all the hormonal challenges, which just make their body feel like an alien shell that they're living in.
Yes, and I totally relate to that. I've said on this podcast and in other forums as well that I remember waking up one morning thinking, whose body
am I in? Yeah, that's right. Why am I snapping at everyone? Why can't I sleep? Why does nothing fit?
Yeah,
I know, all these things,
yeah,
yes.
and it is like that. And I think, even though this day to celebrate or to recognise the importance of happiness wasn't introduced to 2012, we do know, you're quite right, everyone is seeking their version of happiness.
Yes, that's right.
And I think what I see in my community for women is that it's not just happiness in the moment, it's finding that place where we feel content or grateful. All of those things contribute to our well-being, rather than this highs and lows and black and white and all or nothing approach.
Yeah, that's right. And it seems that so much of, society seems to be steering us towards quick fix happiness. Eat this donut, watch this extra, series on Netflix, sit down for an extra 3 hours every night. Everything we do seems to, promote convenience, which means that we don't have to do so much, hard manual work ourselves, or we eat something to find some, temporary joy. And I think we're all left just feeling a little bit hollow at the end of it all, in that, it doesn't quite give us that long-term sense of contentment. And
that's right.
That we need.
Purpose as well. And as we were talking before we pushed the record button, I go back to the long livers in our world, the blue zone communities. And so, there's the key aspects, that contribute to long livers, and that's, eating well, obviously plant-based, basically. Doesn't mean they don't have some animal foods, but it's also the social connectedness. It's movement with purpose, and often it's just as transport or gardening.
Yeah, that's right. They've got some physicality in their lives.
That's right.
Yes.
And also that very much important sense of, family and community, but purpose as well, that individual purpose, and being with people that are similar to you. I think that's what's really important, that we do have communities to support us in our health and our well-being, which I know you have, and as we do in the Eating For You community as well.
That's right. And I guess in many respects just also trying to take a step back and simplifying life, because sometimes we tend to overcomplicate our own lives as much as possible, which means that the first things to go are our focus on what we're eating, or how we're nourishing our bodies, or how movement makes us feel. The fact that we're just essentially, in some respects, we are we are giving our body an outlet to actually feel comfortable and and stretched and mobile and everything through movement. Not because it's going to burn X number of calories or make us look toned in a certain way or something like that, but just for just this sheer joy of just knowing that you feel comfortable and you're in touch with your body and how it moves.
And I think it's really important, and it's the feedback that I often get from women who complete my programs is that, I just feel healthier and I feel more comfortable in my own skin, or feel more comfortable in my body, because I work pretty closely with women, and at the beginning they may not tell me, Sally-Anne, I don't look in the mirror anymore because I don't feel well, I don't feel comfortable, I don't like the way I look. But then a month or so will go by and they'll say, do you know when I started this program, I couldn't even look in the mirror. Now I don't care because I'm just feeling so well. So it's an interesting transition, and I think it's got a lot to do with that investment in yourself. That's and right. Also the sense of achievement that you're making, because I'm all about baby steps, not these massive transformations or quick fixes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting you should say that, because just before I came here, I had a call from a lady that I used to do my classes. This is going back over 10 years ago, and I recognised her name. I can't remember what she looks like. But she says, it was almost like just what we're talking now. She says, I'm screaming at everyone. I'm crying every day. I just don't want to do anything. And one of my girlfriends said that she was training with you, and I thought, of course, I used to do that, and she's going to make a venture back, and we're going to have a chat and see what feels right for her. But you can so feel, I know exactly where she's coming from, because and she's not imagining it. It is harder to recover from all these other things that happen in your life. It is tough when your energy is fluctuating all over the place, and you just feel that one day you just want to hide in a hole, and the next day you're really sort of feeling that I need to get away from here or something like that. Yeah. So it is hard to do that, because you are throwing yourself out of your comfort zone to initially when you actually start to make that move towards it. But then it's like we say, it doesn't have to be a massive move, but you've just got to have that faith that it's and also it shifts how you look at eating and how you look at moving, because you're not you are doing it to nourish you, like I said earlier. And just getting over that little barrier to start yourself taking those little baby steps in that right direction, feeling optimistic that it will make a difference down the track.
And I think it's about being realistic about what you can do. Trialing a new diary for my own personal use this year, and of course it encourages you to set like 5 healthy habits for the week. And I don't always get the 5. I might only get 1 some days, or I might get 3. And it's being okay with that as well, and just understanding that on the day I pick what's going to be right for me, and movement's normally the one. And then there's some that are just sort of like own nutrition goals that I've got at the time, because at the time of recording this episode, I'm on a no added sugar challenge, which is not really a challenge for me. But, I just woke up at the beginning of the week saying, I don't want any more added sugar. So my body's saying, not that we did have a lot over the festive season, but it was just time to do something different. So that just becomes, part of what I do. And that's the same for everyone. If that's what you do, then that just gets part of your routine, and then you pick up the next step, the next goal. You don't just try and do 5 random things.
So it's not an all or nothing approach. You're kinder to yourself in that. I'm moving generally in this direction, and I'm smart enough to realise that life's always going to be throwing curveballs at me, and left field things that I can't control, or I can control how I respond to them.
That's right.
But I make that decision that probably is just not going to serve me today to stress about.
No. And
getting those extra veggies on tonight's dish.
That's right. And I think this is where the mindfulness comes in as well. That we become more aware of our own barometer. How we're seeing the world, how centered or off-centered we're actually feeling, and one of my clients I hadn't spoken to for a while was on a podcast recently, and Judy was in episode 112, said that what she has evolved her mindful eating practice to be is more of a mindfulness practice where she's navigating the ups and downs of life, much better. So there's not so many highs and not so many lows. And that reduces her stress because she's not reacting to all of these external things that are going on around her. And of course, she's less stressed. She makes better decisions for herself in all areas of her life. And she's got less stress eating because she's not as stressed. So learning, to use mindful eating, mindful movement to actually manage stress, it's a win-win.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. One thing also that has worked works for many people, and that's to try and get into movement by making it a social thing. And there's a few obviously good reasons for it. We know that having some socialization is one of the key things to longevity as well. If you look back at the blue zone populations, they all have quite strong communities, sense of purpose that goes with it as well. But I guess the reality is in modern life, especially at this age for women, I'm speaking probably from personal experience at one point, it seemed that every relationship I had in my life had some element of stress that was accompanying with it, whether it was parental things or work things or this and that, or spouse things. And going out and using exercise as a means of finding relationships that don't carry all that baggage is actually quite nice, in that, hey, you meet up these people and you see them perhaps once a week during a class, or when you do a walk together or things like that, and it just puts you in a space where you're just away even just from the mental, I guess, relaxation that comes with just not having to be in talking to someone about something that has some element of stress to it is quite lovely.
And I think that is part of the whole happiness story as well, is that most of us want to be part of functional relationships and contribute. But if we don't look after ourselves, we can't do that.
That's right. You can't give back. You can't cope.
No. So that's a really important thing to have in your barometer. And of course, my community is probably a little bit different to yours. Your communities are encouraging people to step out of the stress, whereas my community is more about, well, let's resolve this stress around eating. And that's what's so lovely for the women to come together, because it's often just a relief that, I'm not the only one that has these problems with food. I'm not the only one who's been on and off diets for 20 years. I'm not the only one who, beats myself up when I don't stick to the diet plan, or, I forget to keep my mindful eating journal, whatever, the activity has been that they feel that they haven't succeeded with. So definitely those like-minded communities to give you that positive support, whatever you're looking for. Yeah, it's really important.
Definitely.
So, Angela, we both agree on many things, which is not unusual. And community is definitely one of them. But what I see in my community, and are so proud of the individual women that, take the journey towards their own health and happiness with eating. And I'll come back to this because I do want to talk about, nutrition versus relationship with food. But from an exercise or movement point of view, what do you see women gaining, in themselves by, establishing a way of movement that really supports them?
I have so many examples I could give you of this because I see it so often with women in my community. And one that comes to mind is a lady that has just come back to fitness, or to come back to sort of training with me and in my studio, having gone through a really tough cancer journey with breast cancer, and to the point we really didn't think she'd make it back, and we are just so excited to have her back. And this was a lady who was a real high achiever leading into this cancer journey that she's gone through. She'd be one of the fittest ladies that I knew for her age, bundle of joy and energy, and quite a vibrant person. And she still is, but obviously coming back as a much calmer person, but also coming back from a point where her body is just so different to what it was 4 years ago when this journey started for her as well. And she only just ventured back about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and she's starting very gently. She's just doing a few yoga classes. And just you can just see she's just putting her feet back in the water, which is the best thing to do, because let's face it, it's almost like she's got a new body now that very different to the one she had before. and she's just venturing back into it. And it's just lovely to see her, even with people that, you know, wouldn't have known her 4 years ago when I last saw her, in that sense, you know, starting to warm to her and vice versa. And she can see that she's actually looking forward to getting out and coming back in here. And it's just lovely in that respect to see how transformation journey is continuing. And she may never be quite, you know, the same person she was before, but she's on a path now, and you know, she doesn't know where it's going to lead. I don't know where it's going to lead for her either, but it is just wonderful to see that, you know, she's embracing this and, you know, tentatively going in that direction. And you know, I've seen people come back from the death of a spouse, and again, something that's totally turned their life upside down, left them at a point in their life where they're probably, I guess, weaker and more confused and nervous than ever about their direction going forward, and then just taking those steps to coming back slowly and almost having almost like a clean slate about where can I go with this. And you know, all of us, you know, where it doesn't have to be that extreme, I guess, a journey that we've got, but you can see how, you know, in some respects you almost have to just go in with just a totally open mind and just let's start moving, let's get out there, and let's start, you know, seeing where this journey takes us. And you can see that once people get into that, they're continuing, you know, and you can see the, you know, over a period of just a few weeks and a few months, how suddenly there's a sense of the rest of their life starting to fall into place a little bit better, or they're learning how to actually, you know, navigate their new world going forward. And it's just wonderful to see. You just know how hard it is for people, you know, that are going through this sort of journey and getting to this point, and but also knowing that, hey, you are so going to feel so. I just look forward to see what you're going to be like in another 6 months' time, because I know you're just going to be on your path and you're going to be absolutely nailing it. This new direction. Yes.
And I think what you said is so important. It's being able to remove those expectations of our body, and because that can create a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
If we hang on to what we could do 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 5 years ago, that may not serve us well. It could be just too stressful. It may not be achievable.
Absolutely. And the same goes into things like looking at your body composition, like, oh, I always had a slim waist or tight abs, or, you know, this is so much bigger than
That's right.
than that, you know, in terms of what the benefits of this are.
And of course, that is somewhat the challenge, but often a relief for the women that I work with, is that we're not actually measuring progress by size, shape, or weight. We're really measuring progress by how confident you feel in being able to choose the food that you want to eat now, to know how much to eat that physically satisfies you, to understand that yes, sometimes we are going to stress eat, that sometimes we may be triggered to eat because of how we're feeling, but we recognize that. Or, as another client shared with me recently, I don't miss out on anything. If I want to have a piece of chocolate, I have my chocolate. I just don't eat the whole block now. And that's that sense of control without restriction or deprivation. And when we take the focus of how our body looks, because at the end of the day, we don't really have a lot of say on what our size and shape is, or even our composition, as you said, because of our genetics, but also because of the experiences we have in our life, the life stage we're at, the hormonal changes. Our body's changing as we sit here and speak.
That's right. But what we do want to do is give our bodies what it needs, either through food or through movement, so that we're building as strong and resilient a body and mind as we're going forward. You know, because we all want longevity.
Yes.
We all want to be able to be as active and you know, and feel as good in our body and be, you know, illness free. You know, as we age as well, and you know. And this is how you do it, by starting to have that, like you say, that mindfulness coming back. How does food affect me? How does exercise affect me?
That's right. Because if we talk about the foods that boost our mood, they're not necessarily the foods that people are reaching for now. Because I know most people will say, oh yes, I have some chocolate in the afternoon, or I have a coffee, or I have something sweet because I know that's going to give me energy. But they're not actually the foods that boost our mood. The foods that the research is showing that helps us maintain a calmer state, a happier sense, less, you know, depressive sense about us, are our plant foods, our colourful vegetables especially, but also our white vegetables like our cauliflower, and we can't discount them. But these foods can actually become the foods that we crave. And I remember a client of mine a few years ago saying to me at the end of her program, it was a few months after she'd finished, and she said, I actually crave vegetables now. I'm not craving the ice cream, the chocolate, the potato crisps. And that was Anne, who I discussed, her journey with in episode 9. And that is really understanding again that what you were saying before, we're looking for happiness or that feeling of joy or that sustained energy, not a quick up and down. Like we don't want to feel, sugar drop, caffeine hit, caffeine drop, because they can really put us into quite, low states of energy. And so, you might be listening thinking, I wish I could, crave carrots or crave broccoli. But in time, it does happen.
Your palate changes.
And also it's that mindfulness about, well, how do I actually feel after I eat the block of chocolate? I've never heard anyone say, I felt fantastic. You physically feel unwell because of the fat and the sugar you've eaten, let alone what's going on in your mind with the whole guilt and self-blame and everything else that goes on with that. So if we really take notice of how our body and mind responds to food, we can get some guidance. But of course, there can be some help needed here because we've got so much black and white rules, from dieting and everybody else who's tried to give us a sense of what to do. It takes time to remove those so you can actually connect with that inner wisdom or intuition around food.
I find a very similar parallel with what you're saying when it comes to exercise as well, because that mindfulness is really what steers you towards certain types of movement as well, or finding your happiness in exercise. And that is, will depend from one person to another, depending on what we actually enjoy doing. Some people will love a dance class, other people love gardening at home and finding that serenity in their own space. There'll be times when other aspects of stress in your life means that you're going to find happiness in having something that's more restorative, like a Pilates class or a yoga class, something that just helps you slow down and focus more on your breathing. There are other times when that sense of energy that you're building up needs an outlet, and that's where something a bit more physical, where raising your heart rate is going to give you those positive endorphins and things like that, which actually give you that joy as well. And it may not always be that one week to the other it's exactly the same things you need. Obviously, as much as possible, you want a routine that is going to help you to achieve those longer term goals that we want, such as building strength so that we do have a strong, resilient body, and getting a heart rate up so that we we have a healthy heart, we're not prone to illness, and moving so that we've got good mobility and flexibility in our body as we get older. We've got good movement. So and that's the thing. I think it's almost stepping away from what society says you should be doing. 4 strength workouts a week and 2 HIIT sessions or 2 high impact, and saying, well, hang on a sec. What's going to work for me this week as well? And and if you love and you can do that, then that's great. And for most people, it's not that. It's not that at all. I mean, what the textbooks say or what those is different to what it looks like in real life for real people.
And even from the nutrition perspective, as much as that nourishment and the happiness boosters coming from the rainbow of vegetables, it doesn't mean you eat the whole rainbow every day. I know I have days where for whatever reason, I've just eaten orange vegetables, but I can tell you the next day I want my greens. So it's not as if it happens on the plate every day. And I should just add in, if people are concerned, obviously with nutrition and the phytonutrients we get from food, plants are fantastic, but we do need to pair it with good quality protein, whether that's coming, from animal foods or from lentils and legumes. Very important we get that, and also throw eggs in there as well. But also healthy fats, from nuts,
it's
seeds,
a balanced diet.
Fish. But we understand more now why it's important, not just for the physical body, but for our mental health as well. We understand that, and of course, a lot of that research has come out from the Mediterranean style of eating, I should say the traditional Mediterranean style of eating, but also the research into gut health as well, and that gut brain connection as well.
That's right. It's very
Very
hard to
important.
separate that
Yeah.
from the body, isn't it? In
Yeah.
terms of what the body needs is what the
But
brain needs, what the mind needs.
that's right. But I think the other thing when I look at food and happiness for my clients is that, yes, nutrition is important. I'm a nutrition scientist, I'm a dietitian, I love all of that stuff. But your relationship with food is far more important. You know, if you've tried to stick to these rigid meal plans, if you've berated yourself for breaking, diet plans time and time again, your confidence and self-worth around food needs a boost. And it's not going to be following more eating guidelines that is going to do it. Because when I talk to my clients, a lot of their eating habits, bad ones, if you like, the ones that tend to make them more stressed, started because they were trying to stick to something they couldn't sustain. So, you restrict the carbs or you restrict the sweet foods. So what do? You overeat them.
That's right.
And then that becomes this restrict binge cycle. And you can just see how it happens. And unfortunately for some ladies and men and younger people as well, that whole cycle can set off eating disorders as well, which is a whole nother topic. So I think it's really important that, yes, nutrition is a foundation, movement's a foundation, relaxation, sleep, relationships is all important, but it's how we perceive those as well. And especially when it comes to food, that relationship with food is so important. And look, it can happen at any age. One of my darling clients in her mid-80s, Bev, who I spoke to in episode 86, decades she'd been trying to sort this out. So you can do it. If you think, you're listening now and you're thinking you're 40 or possibly younger, 50, 60, 70, 80, it's never too late to change. And for her to say to me, I don't beat myself up about food anymore. I basically eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full. But if I want to have some cake or whatever, it's okay.
Yeah. And same approach to exercise and movement. You just have to take a small step. It doesn't have to be that you've committed and bought a gym membership or you're going to go full on something. Just start moving in there in the direction that you want to go, whether it's a walk, whether it's dancing in your kitchen for 5 minutes because a song that you like comes on on the radio or whatever, or doing some stretching, just outside in the sunshine. Or I was just saying earlier, one of my biggest moments of joy is just floating in water. And just that feeling. If you haven't put your swimmers on for a long time, forget what you look like, just put them on. Just get down there and just float in the water. And you never know, you might be inspired to take a few strokes while you're there. But just moving in the direction of something that you associate with joy, and from there you can just start building on it without it feeling like a chore.
Yes, and just on that, this is just a totally side thing, but I want to throw it in here because some swimwear is quite skimpy. And
not mine.
No, this is what I was going to say. And this is the exact point, Angela, is that we don't have to go there anymore. There are so many options. And I was researching because I need to get some sort of something that's comfortable to wear that basically covers my whole body. So when I go snorkeling, I'm not getting attacked by the stingers. And there's some really lovely, like leggings that are made as swimwear. You can have them like a bike short length or, 3/4 length or full length is what I'll be getting. And then, of course, the long sleeve rashies as well.
That's right, yes.
And so there's some really lovely things where you're protecting yourself and feeling comfortable, but still being able to enjoy being outside and enjoy the water as well.
Oh, absolutely. And
much more choice.
And and look, and I would say probably even in I guess when we're talking about skimpier stuff, I'm not talking about things that are like an inch covering your private parts with it. But even ladies swimwear, there's a lot of some nice swimmer out there that is got tucks you in and all the rest of it. And it feels quite lovely to have it on. You just feel like it's whole.
But what I'm saying is, if you want to cover up,
absolutely.
That's quite possible
anything
now as well.
Goes, or just put a t-shirt over whatever you've got and just
shorts or something. Yeah,
that's right, and just go. You can go in your clothes. I mean, who made up the rules that you have to dress a certain way to get in the water as well?
Exactly. Yes. So, Angela, it's been great sharing with you, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a sum up, and feel free to add things in. But I think a lot of what we've talked about is a sense of balance and control in our life, and having a sense of balance with our movement, a sense of balance with what we're eating as well, and the freedom to eat and move how we want without any guilt or feelings of restrictions or any high expectations, especially when it comes to exercise and movement. And I think it's, as you've mentioned and I've mentioned many times, it's learning to take care of our unique mind and body with how we nourish it with movement, exercise, social relationships, time in nature, times with our pets, all the things that bring us joy. And, you know, life is really too short to be worrying about food, especially. And when I, you know, refer to the research where some studies would say, you know, people spend equivalent of 17 years of their life trying to lose weight, not even achieving it. That's a big chunk of our happiness being sucked away from us. That's and right. Not being able to enjoy life. And that's the ladies, you know, who I've been talking to recently that have, you know, finished one of my programs, you know, several years ago. And they say, I just enjoy life now. I don't even think about food. I just go out and eat what I want, or if I don't want to eat, I don't eat it. I'm not pressured to eat or do anything anymore.
And you're not obsessing about it, all this sort of stuff, you know. That's right. And with movement, I always think, you know, movement should be your stress release, not adding to your stress.
That's right.
You know, so think of it that way. Everything else is getting out of control. Just get out for a walk.
Yes.
That's stress release. Or go and lie down and just stretch, or even just, you know, put some music on and just do some deep breathing. It's all, your body just loves it.
That's
know,
right. That's right. And I think the other thing that gets lost with all the noise out there from so-called experts in the health and well-being fields is that it's really about consistency. It's about doing something that you can maintain and sustain. And that's what's going to build the foundation for you, you know, long term. It's not this all or nothing approach to anything, whether it's movement or how we eat. I think it's so important that we can't underestimate getting that foundation right for ourselves in terms of our well-being.
That's right. And baby steps, you know, you're not going to come into a routine from day one. You're going to it's something you're going to build up to, and one person's routine is going to look different to another person's, and that's why you take your time, you start working towards it until you find what works for you, what you can sustain going forward and committing to.
Angela, thanks again.
No, thank you for having me. It's been lovely to talk.
Yes. And if you've been listening today, please let us know if you've enjoyed this topic we've been exploring, what it is about the topic that resonated with you. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. So, Angela, if people want to seek you out, where can they find you for some more guidance or your online program? What would you like to offer?
Probably the easiest place to find me is by my website, which is fitandfabulous.com.au. And on there, I also have a link to my online Pilates membership as well, if people are interested. And that's a nice introductory way of getting into exercise, which can be done from home. But also on there, I've got some articles as well, and a few other bits and pieces of information that might be of value.
Lovely. I'll make sure the link to your website is with this episode's notes. And if you've been thinking, I'd love to have a more balanced and calm, centered relationship with food, then you're most welcome to book in for a free 30-minute mindful eating strategy call with me, and the details to book into my calendar have been included as well. So thanks again for listening, and I look forward to sharing with you again. You have been listening to the Eating For You podcast with Sally Ann Pisk. If you are looking for additional support to enjoy a lifelong way of healthier eating, then join me in a free 30-minute call to see if our approach is right for you. I have included the link to book an obligation-free call in this episode